Good morning and welcome to Morning Coach Today. I am so glad you're with us. Hey, it's JB. I hope you are doing fantastic today as we're rocking and rolling this July 20th, 2022. It is a Wednesday, and we are ready to take it on and put some great energy out there because that is what we do. All right, so let's get into it today. We're going to talk about one of my favorite things, and this is this idea of listening and why listening is so important in our lives. You know, it's something that I wasn't that great at when I was younger. I wasn't a great listener, but it's one of those things that once I figured it out, like it was like, this is something that I need to learn. It was unbelievable how it really changed my life in all areas. Specifically, as I got into more of a sales world, it really made a big difference. And so I want to go over some tips for you. I actually got 10 tips here to help you utilize this superpower, which is our listening, to make us better at everything that we do. So let's talk about it. Okay, number one. The first thing that we want to do when we are listening, specifically to other people, is we want to be able to make eye contact. I know this is challenging. This is one of those things that people like to lower their eyes. It's almost primordial because it goes back to the animal nature of a stare down. You know, if Neo stares at somebody, he's actually a gentle giant. He's not looking to intimidate, but some dogs are, and they get that stare. And so we tend to avoid that gaze. And the truth is, you got to connect. You got to look in that person's eyes, deep into their soul. And it's a real good way to, communicate. Now, you can look away a little bit, but once you really connect, when they're talking, you got to look in their eyes, look at them, understand what they're saying. It's a really important characteristic of a great listener. If I see somebody that's avoiding their eyes and not looking at me and trying to avoid me, a couple things are happening. One, they're either trying to be deceptive, right? And they're trying to lie. Or number two, they're just really shy. And that's okay. It's just understanding that is so critical when you're listening to somebody. You get that, and we're going to talk about nonverbal cues. But somebody looks you in the eyes and you just kind of match. It's solid. Okay, so that's the one of the keys. And the next thing I want to talk about is visualize what the speaker is saying. Again, this is something that can help you as somebody is speaking. You want to visualize what they're saying. Like, see the movie in your mind. Even when I read, I do this. I like to visualize and see what's happening. It always helps me. I'm more of a visual person. But if you can visualize what they're saying, then you're engaging. It's keeping your mind engaged. I mean, we're learning a lot in Living Untethered about concentration and focus and consciousness, right? And how the consciousness shifts. What we're trying to do is stay conscious on the speaker, and that's what we're doing here by visualizing what they're saying, staying engaged, and it will help you become a better listener. The next thing is you want to limit judgments. Judgments tend to get in the way. We start judging what people are saying, and we start to, it can harm the conversation. And so we've got to be careful with that, with those judgment statements or judgments that you're saying. Okay. The other thing is don't interrupt. This is a big one. Okay. Most people are trying to speak before you speak. This happens a lot to me when I come off stage and I'm somebody's asking for advice. Like they want to get a lot of stuff out of me right away. Right. And so I'll sit there and listen to them. And then I'll go to say something and I'll start saying it. And they're already moving on to the next thing. They're thinking about in their head what they want to say and not even listening to me. It's annoying, to be honest with you, as a coach and a teacher. It's like, wait a minute, you aren't even listening to me. And we've all been in situations where we've had that happen. You're like, well, you're not even listening. Like, I can tell, right? You're not even listening. You're waiting to say something. So make sure you don't interrupt, and specifically don't interrupt mentally. Hold on to what you want to say. And I know there's times when you're going to be like, JB, but I don't want to forget. Like, I don't want to forget. And I get that. I do. I've been there too, where you're like, I want to do that. And that's why typically I always carry notes with me. I always have some place that I can write down things so I don't try to hold it in my memory, because I know my mind works so much better when it's free, right? So when you're holding all that stuff in, you just can't listen. You're waiting to tell them something. And I want to get you to be a better listener, okay? The next thing is you want to wait for a pause before questions. Now, this is hard when somebody's just giving you what I call verbal diarrhea, right? Somebody's just blah, 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 blah. And we all get in those situations where you're just like, okay, this is verbal diarrhea. This is not good. Like I got to get out of here. Somebody call me on my phone. Somebody, and I've always had assistants when I've spoke who said, let's yank him out of here, right? Get out of here because you can't get a word in edgewise. We've all been in those situations. But the way a professional speaker or a professional communicator is going to work is they are going to wait, right? They're not gonna jump in. They're gonna wait for the pause and then come in strong. And by doing that, you're understanding the patterns of communication, the flow of communication. So you're able to listen, you hear a pause, you hear silence, and then you come in. Okay? Again, taking good notes so you don't have to rely on your brain to do all this work to be a great communicator. So listening is really important, okay? And then being able to wait for the pause is important. Another thing that's really good, ask clarifying questions. We've been talking about this the last couple of days. You want to understand what the person's saying. It comes down to expectations. And a lot of times, we are making judgments and thoughts as they're speaking, and we're not really hearing. And I think this happens a lot with kids, right? When you're parenting, you run into this. Nobody's really communicating. Everybody's just shouting. Heck, I think this is society. I think we are acting more like children than adults. Adults communicate in a way where they clarify what each other's trying to understand what they're trying to say. There's so much hypocrisy today in the world that it's hard to really understand. And the truth is, I don't think a lot of people really understand what they're trying to say. I mean, they're just emotional beings just, screaming out there. And one of the things we got to do is be able to handle those situations, right? And by clarifying and understanding what are you really trying to do here? What do you mean? It'll help you become a better communicator. It may annoy some people because they make assumptions that you are living in their head, especially people that haven't done this type of work, right? They just assume that you've had all the experiences and things that they've had, and they get annoyed when you don't follow their way, especially on social media. It's just annoying, right? And it's just annoying. It's like, I don't know what you're trying to say. What do you really mean by that? And it's like you just got to keep moving, especially with some people that they just don't get it, right? But you want to be able to be somebody that clarifies the questions or clarifies what they're trying to say, the questions they're asking. Make sure you're getting what they're really getting at, okay? You want to empathize with the speaker. Empathy is a great skill, again, that can be learned. It's something that has helped me. Empathy and edification, the double E's, I think are really important. First, empathizing is you walk, a mile in their shoes, you understand. And sometimes you just got to listen to really hear what they're doing so that you can empathize with what's happening to them. So when I coach, and I'm really coaching, not consulting, and typically I consult more than I coach, but when I'm coaching, I'm listening and empathizing to the situation. And I'm thinking, how would I handle it? How would I deal with this particular situation? If it's a family situation or a business situation. Remember, a lot of my CEOs that I coach in the trusted advisor space, that's where we're going. I mean, they can't talk to anybody else. There's the two types of coaching that I do is stress-free, where we don't put anything on the calendar, which is more of a consulting situation. I'm helping people be free. Or number two, where I'm the trusted advisor. And in the trusted advisor role, I have to empathize. I have to be able to step back and see where they're coming from in order to be able to help, right? And be able to move them forward or basically just be there to be a sounding board for them. So empathize with the speaker. Get in there, try to understand where they're coming from. Step back and look in their eyes when especially when you're in an audience, and you just it really makes it so much better if you can get into the story. You can connect even more. And so being able to empathize is a really critical key of being a superhuman listener, right? Pay attention to nonverbal. Again, this is something you can learn. The more you learn about communication, the more you're going to understand nonverbal plays a huge role. It's why meetings in person are so much better than Zoom meetings. A lot of people want to continue to have Zoom meetings, but they're just not even close to the interpersonal connection that you have with real human beings, specifically body language. When you can see how somebody's moving, are they uptight? Are they tense? Are they comfortable? Are they not comfortable? When you become a master communicator, That's one of the things you want to understand is what are they doing? Why are they making these particular movements so that you can, again, understand the clarity of what they're trying to say. Okay, they're angry. You can see that they're angry. You can see that they're frustrated. And so this is where you want to work from and understand where they're at. So by understanding that, it helps you really know what's going on. Okay, so pay attention to nonverbal. And the next one is to provide feedback. And this means you're going to provide feedback to these people and let them know you're thinking, and let them know what you're doing. Again, I always ask when I'm in most situations, can I take notes? I really want to get this. That gets the conversation off to a great start because they know I'm going to be listening, so much so I'm going to be taking notes. And then with my notes, I can provide feedback. What did you mean by this? Okay, great. So you're saying this, and this is what's happening. Again, increasing your listening skills by being active and by working that, okay? Then we keep going. The next step is to practice, okay? Listening is a skill. Yes, some people have a talent, right? But really it's a skill. It's something that you can learn to get better at. We're gonna spend time on it here, so you're gonna get some of it, and that may be enough, right? The 10 things that I teach you may be enough. But you may want to get a book on it. You maybe want to watch some videos on it and really work on your listening skills. I mean, people have written books about nonverbal communication. I mean, people have written books on all types of communication and listening and understanding the body language and what people are doing. As you get into your life and you start living, these are things that are going to help you be a better parent, be a better leader, be a better boss, and just be better at everything. Right? When you understand that, you're going to just be in a better situation than when you are, not listening, right? And most people, the crazy thing is, most people just aren't good listeners. They didn't learn this in school. I mean, we get taught so many things, and the most important things we're not being taught, right? It's just a fact. And so, we've got to get ourselves better at different skills that are going to make our lives better. And becoming a superhuman listener is such a powerful skill. And there's really no excuse not to be, right? The only reason you're not doing it is because you just don't want to do it. So let's go through the 10 things again real quick so you can make some notes if you're taking notes, and let's become better listeners. So number one is eye contact. Obviously, if you're one-on-one, you want to make sure you are having proper eye contact. Number two, you want to visualize what the speaker is saying. You want to play that picture in your mind so you can kind of see it and really bring it together. That will help you with your consciousness and concentration, sticking with it as you attempt to visualize. You want to limit judgments. You want to be very cautious of this. We're going to talk about this tomorrow a little bit in the Ask JB about staying present. But, those past samskaras come in that we're learning about, from our book, is that, the past samskaras, we start making judgments, and that doesn't allow us to really bring the message in. So be careful with that. And right along with that, you don't want to interrupt. You want to get you, and this is a mental interruption too. You don't want to be thinking about what you're saying. You want to have that ready to go. The more you think, the worse it's going to get. And meaning when you are thinking about what you want to say. So, carry that notepad with you so you don't have to interrupt. You don't have to try to remember something, and you make those points of what you're going to say. I got a meeting coming up this afternoon. I just did this. I wrote down the things that I want to cover so that I'm ready to have the discussion with the person that's in the meeting. So make sure you don't interrupt. Wait for a pause before questioning. Again, this is part of just etiquette of communication. If somebody's giving you verbal diarrhea, I get it. It happens. But you want to have that pause before you jump in. You want to ask clarifying questions. Really get to know what the person's trying to say. Again, empathy is so critical. Empathize with the speakers. This is really important that we have empathy in our lives and we do empathize with the speaker. We want to pay attention to the nonverbal. These are things you can learn. Are their arms crossed? I will give you some more of that as we continue to get in the listening here. But really understanding the nonverbal helps you know what somebody's trying to say. And then again, you want to provide feedback. That's critical as we do what we do. And finally, we want to practice these skills. We want to get better at listening day in and day out. We want to make this a superpower. And anybody can do this. I'm playing D&D. You have these skills and characteristic numbers. You can increase this. This is one of those that you can increase. just through practice and education. Okay, so I love you. Get out there, have a great day, and I'll be back with more right here tomorrow on morningcoach.com.